Hello there, right here, and the contraption you see behind me is a machine that will automatically get you Sculk blocks, Sculk veins, as well as XP, all while being AFK. But there's only one problem, that is I designed this machine 4 months ago, when there wasn't even Sculk blocks in the Java edition. And instead I designed this entire contraption based off of the mechanics in the Bedrock edition. So let's see how well I am at designing farms in the future. Hit that like button as well as subscribe and let's get into it. So before we give this crazy machine a try, first I want to explain the different parts of it. So up here we have our platform where the Endermen spawn in, because we are here in the Ender Mansion, a little distance away from the main end island. This is typically where you build like your Enderman farm, because you have a natural void where there's no other blocks that mobs will spawn on, so they'll spawn here on our platform. The Endermen are then getting angry at the Endermite that I have here in this minecart, and are trying to attack it. So they get as close as possible, which puts them directly underneath of it, where there is a hole where they fall all the way down and onto this dripstone point. This fall damage plus the point will do enough damage to kill them, and a dying mob is one part that is needed in order to produce the Sculk stuff. The next thing that we need is a block that can be converted over. There's a lot of different things that can be converted into Sculk blocks. I covered them all in the video about 47 tricks to do with the Warden and 1.19. I designed this off of the Bedrock edition where stone is able to be converted to Sculk. So I got one stone generator right here. This is the same stone generator that I used in my moss farm from 1 year ago and I recently did a tutorial on. And this is also another stone generator. They're very simple. You don't have to worry about cobblestone accidentally being produced or being unloaded at the improper time. They're producing stone and pushing it into the center. Hopefully if everything goes right, it'll be converted into Sculk blocks. Now to get the Sculk blocks or veins or the XP, we need to mine the blocks up by hand. So I got a silk touch hoe and also a normal hoe or fortune. And the way I designed this is for the player to sit here and aim forward to mine up the blocks as they get converted. Notice my player is actually moving. This is done by having a honey block that is switching between 3 different locations. This is so the player can aim forward and mine up to 15 different blocks without riding inside of anything, because that actually makes the player take twice as long to mine anything. Now the clock that runs this honey block switching is right here. This clock can be adjusted to determine how fast you want to move while within the farm. And the clock that runs the stone generator is just underneath of here. The last part of this contraption is when you actually break the blocks, they will fall downwards and they can get picked up by this hopper minecart, put into these hoppers, and then stored in these chests over here. But this machine is clearly not producing any Sculk. That is because besides needing dying mobs as well as a block that can be converted, we also need the new Sculk catalyst. And now that Java has the first 1.19 experimental snapshot, we also have the catalyst to try out. So the catalyst only needs to be within 8 blocks of where the mobs are dying to then try to cause the spread of Sculk. So let's go ahead and place it in and see what happens. We got the catalyst and it's making some particles, but you see that there's nothing going on here. And that's because where the Endermen are dying is where the game tries to make the conversion start at. And it needs a clear path from here down to our blocks that we're trying to get converted over, which is the stone. So let's help the catalyst along and we'll switch out this glass, which is a block that charges can't go through, the block that can, which is the Sculk block. So now we got the Sculk block in there. We can see there is clearly tons of charges. They're just waiting to convert some stone over. But once again, they can't have a clear path to the stone down here. Let's go ahead and connect this with the stone just by putting in a Sculk block and let's see what happens. Oh my goodness, look at the spread. What in the world? The veins are just spreading everywhere. It's even climbing up here trying to get up into the Enderman farm. It's just so eager to find places that they can switch out the blocks. We can actually see the charges moving about. There's these little bubbles. But let's see if the farm actually works. Let's grab our silk touch hoe, go into survival, hop into our little machine that moves us back and forth. And then what we would do is just aim forward and hold down the left click button. You can see it's actually working. The stone are being pushed in and then they're being converted into the Sculk block. And then we are mining them up. They're dropping. Hopper is picking them up and putting them into the chest. We can also switch out for a non-silk touch hoe, and these will actually give us XP. You can see XP is dropping. Each Sculk block drops 1 XP, and then the XP is coming into our inventory, so it's an AFK XP farm as well. That's amazing. So this farm also did one other thing, and that is it could produce veins. We can see the veins on the outside. The way the veins work is that they don't place themselves on top of actual Sculk blocks, but blocks that can't be converted like the glass here. So if we go ahead and just swap out our stone generator with some other block that can't be converted, we can see that veins are then placed on top of it. Pretty cool. Now you can see the use of the campfires. These are actually to get us a special angle so that not only we can mine these lower blocks, but we can also aim above it and mine these upper blocks. So we've got our silk touch hoe. And if I just mine here and aim properly, I should be able to get all these veins. The veins are being picked up by the hopper minecart and stored in our chest. So overall, this entire crazy contraption that I designed 4 months ago, prior to even having these blocks in the Java edition, seems to be working pretty good. But if you watch my Minecraft news videos, you will know that Sculk blocks and veins are not the only thing that are farmable, but we can also farm up the Sculk sensors as well as the Sculk shriekers. And you guys know me, my 12-year Minecraft goal of trying to make a farm for every single item in the game of Minecraft. Let's see if my farm can farm up all 4 of these new items. And you might notice inside this farm that there was a Sculk sensor that was produced inside of here. So our next goal is to also get this farm to work for farming up those 2 blocks. Plus we need to also come in and prevent the charges from coming outside of the conversion area, because for every charge that exits this area, it just wanders about and gets lost, making the conversion less efficient. So let's first contain the Sculk charges, because the setup that we had here for Bedrock worked great then, but doesn't work anymore. These trapdoors are letting the Sculk veins creep through, as well as the glass. So all we have to do is just switch out these blocks for blocks that veins cannot attach themselves to. So we could just change out the sides for slabs. The only problem is when we're mining in here, the items that we mine up are going to kind of fly up and they could fall on top of the slabs and not be picked up. We need to have kind of a full surface so items don't fall through it. But we can't put solid blocks here because the veins will climb up them. We need a block that is mostly full, but not quite full. So a soul sand works because it's not actually a full block, so veins can't stick to the side of it, though they can stick to the bottom of it. Another block that we could use is the cauldron. Because it has this little hole here, veins can't actually stick to it, but items can also not fall through that little hole. The cauldrons are kind of expensive because they take iron, so we're going to use soul sand where needed. So we'll put soul sand on these near edges that are close to where we're mining. And then we'll come in and place slabs on top just to give a little more height so items don't end up on top of the soul sand. So now the charges should be contained. Let's go ahead and remove all of these veins here. You can see it even actually made it all the way to this stone that we use for our spawning platform up here, which is pretty crazy. So let's go ahead and remove the veins and see where the spread is coming from. So it looks like it is contained. And we can see all the charges are being directed down into the area where we want to be converted. But we have a problem, and that is this block that is directly in front of our face. We would be AFKing here, mining these blocks. You can see that we would actually mine up that block. Now this still works for the vein version of the farm, because essentially we have this block here, which is connecting the dying mobs all the way down to here, and then it can spread out. But if we switch over to the XP mode or the Sculk block mode, you can see that veins are no longer produced on top of this. And the charges are once again stuck right there. So let's try to have the charges come over, then down, then to our platform. So let's switch out this block with a block that charges can go through, as well as this block here. So now it should be able to go down into our platform here. You can see now we also let it loose and it just completely took over again. So I'm going to come in and switch out some of this glass with slabs so the veins won't stick to it, and if we don't have veins, then it won't be able to continue up the rest of this. Let's see if we contain the corruption. So the charges are going down, but you can see we are getting these Sculk blocks, so I need to come in here and remove any full surface near these Sculk blocks to prevent the spread of it. So I went ahead and placed in some blocks as well as buttons over here to contain the spread of it. So let's go ahead and hop inside and give it a go. Just aim forward and start mining. And you can see it's working good. Notice that the charges come down on the right hand side and convert this first, and then it's a little bit slower at converting this side. So let's go ahead and put it so the charges can go either direction. Place this block and this block. Now the charges can go either way. Now we can see all the charges are being really concentrated here in the center. So aiming down gets us our Sculk blocks. If we switch over to my fortune hoe, we can go ahead and get XPs. Now when we're mining up the XP, it drops pretty much straight downwards and does try to move towards the player. But if we do F3 plus B, we can actually see the hitboxes of the XP, and we can see some of them are getting stuck in the hoppers in the far back. Let's try to fix that. I think the easiest fix would be just to come in here and fill this in with blocks rather than hoppers. So instead of all of our hoppers taking all the items this direction into the chest, we'll probably have the chest be put on either side. So I changed out the collection system underneath. I came in with mostly full blocks in the center, and I got the hoppers on either edges. Now if we go ahead and mine up the Sculk and get XPs, they'll fall onto the blocks and they'll be able to slide across to the player and not get stuck in the hoppers anymore. Now these extra hopper minecarts are also useful when we run the farm in the vein mode, because in vein mode it produces the most amount of items, around 30,000 per hour. Or if you use our silk touch and aim a little bit higher, we can mine up these Sculk sensors. So there is a 1 in 10 chance that instead of it being a Sculk sensor, it's going to be a Shrieker. So we got the farm to work for Shriekers and sensors as well. They're also being picked up by the hopper minecarts and being placed into the chest. Now when it comes to how much Sculk veins, Shriekers, as well as sensors you can collect, that's determined by how many Endermen spawn as well as die. But when it comes to collecting Sculk as well as XPs, you're limited by the speed of the stone generator. So if you want to increase those rates, you'll just have to put in more stone generators. Now in order to get Sculks and Shriekers, we do need to make sure that the catalyst is at least 4 blocks away from the nearest Sculk block. I'm just going to go ahead and place it right over here, and it should still work and be plenty far. Now while you're mining in here, you can activate the Shrieker, which does summon in the Warden. And you can see the Warden here spawning right in front of us, actually spawned directly inside the farm, which is pretty crazy. So we want to make sure the player is safe inside the farm and doesn't get attacked by the Warden, even if it gets summoned in. Let's put in some doors right here to keep the Warden out while the player is inside the farm. Also put in some trap doors, and we'll close off this area lastly with some slabs there. So now if you're inside of here, you shouldn't be able to attack you from the outside. Now we just need to prevent the Warden from actually spawning directly inside of our farm. Now we could just come in here and put in some solid blocks, which would cause the Warden to suffocate and eventually die, essentially making a Warden farm. But they only drop like 5 XPs and they don't drop any items. Might change in the future. So for now, I want to prevent the Warden from spawning in the farm. Now, like I said, he can spawn inside a solid blocks if there is an air gap above the block he is spawning on. And we gotta keep air down here because we want to use this as a Sculk Vein, Shrieker, and Sensor farm. But Wardens will not spawn inside of liquids, so we can take advantage of this, and I'll put a layer of lava on top. Okay, so I got the lava in, and then we're just holding it up with slabs, and then we got a nice little area here to farm. The Warden is outside, and we should be safe to be inside of here. So now we are free to run the farm without the Warden spawning inside and interrupting us. Now we will get the darkness effect, but it doesn't hurt us. Now there's 2 different ways you can run this farm. You can run this by just choosing one of the 4 different modes. You can choose like Sculk block mode, or aiming above it, producing Sculk Shriekers and Sensors, or XP mode where you don't use Silk Touch, or Vein mode where you have blocks inside of here. But there is a different way you can run this where you can get Shriekers, Sensors, Sculk, and Veins all without having to switch out anything. And this is done by putting a layer of slabs over the majority of the Sculk blocks. So if we aim right here, we can get the chance of a Sculk or a Shrieker. And then once we mine those away, we'll get the Sculk blocks, and we can get the Veins to occur just underneath of the slabs. It's kind of hard to see, but there's Veins occurring right there. So just AFK like this can get you 4 different types of Sculk blocks. As a bonus, I also created a Warden farm. You see we got a platform here where the Wardens will spawn on top of. And this is done because we have a Shrieker, and the Shrieker is being activated by this redstone clock. And whenever it shrieks, it will attempt to place the Warden inside. And you can see as soon as it spawns in, it immediately falls. We also prevent the Warden from actually spawning on top of the Shrieker because we have lava directly there, and that's a liquid, so they don't spawn there. And after spawning in, they just drop straight down. We need to drop them at least 24 blocks so the Shrieker doesn't see them and will continue to produce more. But they just fall into some lava. I got some slabs here, and we're holding it in with some walls to prevent the Wardens from digging back into the ground. I just got a trapdoor making some noises here. So they're busy trying to get it rather than go idle and leave the world. The player does have to be within 16 blocks of the Shrieker in order for it to summon in Wardens, and you need to be within 24 blocks of the Wardens in order to not have them despawn. That's all I really need to make a Warden farm. Now check out this playlist to see how I designed a farm for every item in the game of Minecraft. Or this playlist where I try to collect every item in the game, but I only get to start with a single block. And remember to join my live streams every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, where you get to see how I design all my farms from scratch. And you can even join me in game. You can find all the information on my Discord. And thanks so much for leaving a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!